Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be speaking to you guys today because I can't imagine of a better community of people than Refactoring to be talking about this stuff. So I'm excited for the Q&A that'll come afterwards. And you'll see that we've built the engineer's front end to issue trackers to help teams keep their code base healthy. And that's why I've interviewed so many engineering teams over the years, hundreds at this stage, to ask them about how they deal with technical debt and, generally speaking, how they keep a healthy code base. I like to say that tech debt is code that you've decided is a liability. We'll get into that. It's all that extra unnecessary work that you need to do to get your software out of the door. And I love this comic by Monkey User, which does a great job at illustrating the topic. Let's talk a little bit about why technical debt is even a thing and why we can never seem to avoid it, no matter what we try. Well, it's because software exists in a world of uncertainty. This is a quote by Martin Fowler, who, in my opinion, wrote the best blog posts about technical debt, and I encourage you to go read them. But essentially, tech debt exists because the code that we write to solve a problem is based on our current understanding of that problem. It sounds obvious, but let's just spend a minute on this. Even if the perfect engineer found the perfect solution to a problem and coded it up perfectly, their understanding of the problem will evolve, and quickly. But left unattended, the code will not evolve. And that means that our code will soon no longer be appropriate. It happens all the time and much faster than you might think, especially in a high growth environment. When I said that the best engineers in the business won't accept messy code as technical debt, I mean that they aim for this top right quadrant, right? So technical debt is not an inherently evil and bad thing, because just like financial debt, it's a tool that we can use to gain extra leverage and test ideas faster. Just like financial debt, if we take it on without being prudent, deliberate, and managing it carefully, it will screw us over and we will go technically bankrupt. So we should never get sloppy, and we should know that code, if left unattended, will turn into technical debt. That's just the way it is. And the best engineering teams in the business end up in that top right. Now, before we talk about exactly how they do this, I want to debunk a few myths to summarize key ideas here. The first one is this myth according to which technical debt is bad and no one should ever take any on. Wrong, super wrong. If you're sending people to Mars, sure. If you're building software where the cost of failure is not high, then you can use tech debt as a way to gain extra leverage. And just like financial debt, the companies who have a strategy to deal with technical debt will ship 50% faster. That comes from Gartner. Who here doesn't want to ship 50% faster, right? That's the stuff of dreams. And if you think that Gartner don't know what they're talking about, which you'd be forgiven for, consider this data point from Stripe, who's arguably the best software company out there, who found out in their research that engineers spend a third of their time dealing with tech debt, which, like I was telling you, crushes team morale and costs the world $85 billion per year. So that's a mad number. Company culture is a massive topic, but I've gone deep into it. And in my opinion, I've found the one cultural characteristic that you should focus on if you want a healthy code base, and that is ownership. And I'm not just talking about some hazy concept here. Microsoft did some great research that we can use to quantify this argument and back it up. Because it turns out that if you analyze your git commit activity to see which percentage of modifications to each file in your code base were made by the main author of the code, you'll see that the files with the most bugs are the files where the main contributors made less than 60% of the edits. So in other words, code ownership is a leading indicator of code base health, and you can use it to predict where things will break and reverse the trend before they do. Let's talk about tech debt budgets. And you might have heard about this idea before. It's the idea that you should allocate a fixed proportion of your sprint capacity to paying down technical debt, say 10 to 30% of every sprint. Now, how the hell do you come up with that number? Well, it should change every sprint, and it turns out that it's not particularly important to explicitly pick the right number, but I'll let you know how you can think about this. And a simple way to define your tech debt budget is to identify the overlap of things that you know you'll be working on using your product roadmap and the parts of your code base that have technical debt. And then you pay off the stuff in the intersection, but not outside of it. That's how you focus pretty much. and you actually scope out the work, and you'll have your tech debt budget for the sprint, quarter, a year, if your roadmap stretches that far into the future. And to do that, pretty straightforward. Every time you come across a piece of tech debt that could be improved or something that could be improved in the code base, if it's a medium or large piece of debt, create an issue, right? Only then will you have visibility into your tech debt and be able to make a proper business case and prioritize things properly, right? You can't say fix technical debt. And that's the vicious cycle that people end up in, is it just accumulates until something breaks, and then they, I don't know, panic, put everything on pause and start fixing that stuff. And it's not entirely our fault, because this is where tooling has failed us so far. And I'll use the words of Jake, who's a lead software engineer at Uncork, who told me that Jira is a great place to manage projects, but a terrible place to track and monitor technical debt. And the same goes for any generalist PM tool that's been, that just hasn't been built with engineers in mind, right? They're not integrated with the code editor. You end up context switching all the time because of that. So engineers don't track things properly, and issues are totally divorced from the code they relate to, which makes getting visibility into and prioritizing technical issues super tough, right? You just can't do it. And to use Stepsize, so I'll take a few seconds to show you how it works. We're building the engineers hub for codebase health, ultimately, but we started by building the engineers front end to issue trackers. Why? Like I told you, it's to enhance the engineering backlogs that people have in generalist PM tools like Jira that typically turn into graveyards where issues go to die. And so we took this editor-first approach where engineers can select any collection of code in their editor and create an issue that will remain linked to that code. That's super powerful. And that issue will also live and be kept in sync with your PM tool of choice.
And one thing that you have not said is that Refactoring members also get a discount for using Stepsize, 50% on the first 3 months. So the tool is great. I've tried it firsthand, so I encourage every one of you to try them. And I really love in general, the trend of doing more things within the same tools that we use every day, like the code editor, to avoid, context switching. And I mean, the more things I can do within VS Code, the happier I am. If I could also send emails from there, I mean, I would be so happy. So to me, it's a very welcome change.
I'm trying to justify solving technical debt. I fail the most is justifying how much it costs the business. So do you have any tips on how to estimate like business features that were missed, people that quit because of the tech debt and those types of things?
Yeah, it's a simple question, but
what are things in managing technical debt that stays the same or that change the most, I think, between smaller teams and bigger teams, so that people in a given stage of the company can figure out it?
And the same goes with how you manage technical debt, because you clear the stuff that's in the way of what you decided matters as a company. That's the second point that tends to change over time, is that at the beginning, getting this thing in front of users so that you get their feedback and you can iterate in the right direction is the most important thing you can do. So if you do deal with technical debt, it's tech debt that impairs your ability to ship.
I have a question. So there's a lot of technical debt, as you said, a cemetery there. So is it easy to, connect already existing technical debt to this tool, or how? I mean, as I understand, you connected to pieces of code. So right now, if I have these in cards on Asana, for example, can it be imported, or how do you connect it?
Yeah. So the short answer is yes. The longer one is that when
and on the community, we will also publish event notes, so the summary of what we have told during the event. So thank you, Alex, and thanks everyone for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me. It was good stuff.